Want to talk about acid? All right. I used to experiment with a hit or two when I was younger, and I always thought about like what it's doing to you, and everybody tries to explain like what happens when you're tripping, and I would like break it down in a real like mechanical way. Like I thought like, all right, your brain, you only have so much mental energy to process a situation. So right now I'm looking out on this lake scene. There's a lake, there's a boat, there's a tree, and like your body, you only have so much mental energy to process that. So you put it into packages. So what do I say when I try to remember the situation? There's grass, there's a tree, there's a family having a picnic, there's a boat, and then I walk away and someone asks, oh, what did you see there? And I'll be like, oh, well, there's a tree, there's a grass, whatever. And they're like, well, what shape was the boat? What color was the tree? What shape was each leaf? And I don't look at all that, I just put it into a package because I need to have enough mental energy to process what's going on and to keep moving. And so you put things into packages basically to make sure that you have enough mental energy to do everything. And then you move on. But you started making those packages when you were a little kid, so before you really had a good idea about the world. So not only do you make packages about what you see, that's a tree, whatever, there's bark, I don't have to think about it anymore, but you do it about people, you do it about, behavior, the way people act, the way you think the world is structured, and you put it into a package and you don't have to think about it anymore and you move on. And I think when you take LSD, it completely erases all those packages, and so you really have to reprocess everything from the beginning as an infant would. So whereas before I'm like, there's a tree there, and now I'm like, oh my god, look at all the shapes, I'm looking at the bark, I'm looking at each shape, each thing, and it's so much to process at once that it's like taking a mental ass beating, like after you trip the first time, like you're just like, you're just done, dude, like it's so rough. And but when you do it a couple times, then you make new packages now. But now you're, an intelligent adult who has a lot of life experiences, so you repackage all these things that you learned, that you packaged as a child, but with the intelligence of knowing how the world is. And so I think that's how it changes your perspective. But anyway, when I was doing it once, I started to think about just people, and I was like right after Katrina happened, I was like, whatever, nomad, like in a whatever bad place or whatever. But I started thinking like when you're born, everybody is basically the same thing. Like you have the same emotions, the same wants, the same needs. You're the same person, and so I visualized it as these like balls of yellow kind of light orb globish thing that kind of move around, but because we're all the same, when they touch each other they can glob together as one, and they can separate and then come back together, hit another one and glob together, and they freely can just mesh with each other and move away. But then as you get older, bad stuff happens to you, and you want to avoid it, and you don't want to deal with it, and it's so traumatic that you don't ever want to have to deal with it again. So you put these sort of emotional defenses up that separate you from people to make sure that you'll never have to deal with that fear or that hurt again. And you can think the yellow glob sort of gets this sort of like metallic pinball cover over it. And as you keep going through life, more and more bad things happen to you, and you don't want to have to deal with that again. Just you look for any way to avoid that pain, and so you put more and more of these pinball shells over you. And now when the blobs are moving around, instead of meshing together, they clack off of each other, and you can no longer connect with people like before. And you start to think that people don't have the same emotions as you, and you see people as qualitatively different, and you distrust people and you try to figure out what they're thinking when they are thinking the same thing as you. But because you have these pinball metallic covers, you can't get back to that yellow blob anymore. And so I think the goal is to try to somehow pierce a hole into those pinball metallic covers and let that yellow stuff leak out in the open, so we can mix together again. And that's my thought on that. My name is John. I am from South Louisiana. My parents are from Opelousas, Cajun country. My dad's from Coonantsville and Point Capee, all French Cajun relatives and stuff. But I moved every year and a half when I was a kid, living with my mom, and I lived in probably like 8 different cities before I was 18, and it's like 1 billion different houses. And I've continued that into adulthood, so I guess I'm not really from anywhere, but from the planet Earth, from Louisiana, South Louisiana, you know.